Happy Halloween! We're gonna talk about theft, tyranny, and deception. I'm gonna yap, I'm gonna draw, so sit back, relax, and just chill. So I used to stay at the dorms in college. It was a pretty small dorm. It was like 2 floors dedicated for like the college dorms in this condominium building. And by this point of the story, I had already been in the dorms for about a year, and the dorm supervisor that we had was about to move out. Really wonderful woman. All the dormers really loved this person. Like, fucking amazing. Shoutouts to Miss Liz. And at that point, we were all already really attached to Miss Liz. And when we heard that she was leaving, we were all like, ah, fuck, the goat is leaving. Like, yeah, she was strict, but she only threw the slippers when she needed to, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, the second year rolls around, the new batch of dormers were coming in, and it's that transition phase with Miss Liz where she's introducing the two new dorm supervisors where we're gonna have. So as the saying goes, first impressions are everything, right? So we were in the common room and we are introduced to the two new supervisors. Dorm supervisor number 1, okay, let's call her Mrs. RBF. If you guys don't know RBF, that means resting bitch face. And this is gonna be very important, okay? Remember, RBF, Mrs. Resting Bitch Face. She was a little standoffish, I would say, when we first met her, and a little timid too, okay? And okay, just to putting this out there, like, RBF isn't strictly just for women or like girls, okay? Men can have this too. Like, I have this debuff as well, okay? But yeah, anyway, first impressions of her was timid, standoffish, and a little soft-spoken. So like already, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm a little bit intimidated by this woman, okay? And she was a little bit taller than I am. Like, to be fair, I'm not very tall in real life. So, you know, if anyone... I don't really want to mess with anyone who's a, who's a little taller than I am, you know what I'm saying? They have the reach and the height advantage. No thank you, good sir. Slap me from across the room, goddamn. Anyway, that's Miss Resting Bitch Face. Supervisor number 2 was a... okay, she's about my height, so I could probably take her on, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah, she was for the most part, she was very friendly. She was pleasant to be around. She just had that very kind aura, so let's call her... Well, she had a really great singing voice, so we'll call her Mrs. Siren. And from what I remember, from what she told us, she had 2 kids, and she was also a single mother at the time. Anyway, after the meeting, like, the common consensus between the dormers was not Mrs., but Miss RBF is probably the one who's gonna give us the most trouble. So, like, you know, we did our best to behave around her. Anyway, the months roll by and college goes on as it does. Miss Liz eventually moves out and we eventually get to know the 2 new dorm supervisors pretty well. For the most part, it would be Miss Siren who would hang out with us in the commons area, and Miss RBF would be in the dorm mother's office. Like, she would occasionally hang out, but for the most part we would only see her during the common area meetings. And I think it's pretty safe to say that the dormers preferred, well, okay, that's a little harsh, but like, we liked Miss Siren more than RBF at the time. Now, if you guys know, in the commons room in the dorm, there is also a commons fridge. And much like the workspace, sometimes people will just take something that is not theirs. Also, a little bit of a fun fact, we had like we had food service in the dorms because like we lived close to the college. Our college had like a hospitality course, so sometimes we would have like the waiters who worked in the college's restaurant like come by and, you know, give us breakfast directly from the restaurant. So, you know, that was nice, but eventually it had to be scrapped because, you know, costs. Anyway, back to the story. Commons fridge is, you know, susceptible to being robbed. Thankfully though, like, everyone's food was relatively safe for the most part, except for the fact that it was the athletes who would usually take food from the fridge. But usually it would be like the food that belonged to their partners at the time when they were still in the dorms. So, you know, it was kind of like established that it was okay, like, for them to take their partner's food. But yeah, anyway, it was the unspoken rule that as long as the athletes were taking their partner's food from the fridge, it was all good. For the ones who weren't dating them, okay, like, if their partner got mad that they took their food, well, that was between them. And one of these people who happened to be dating an athlete was this girl named Pikachu. Not her real name, by the way. We're just calling her that because she had a bit of a bubbly personality. Anyway, a couple of months passed and we're halfway into the semester, and there's this incident that happened between Miss Siren and another one of the dormers. She was this Korean American student, fairly quiet, didn't really have a lot of friends. She was fairly new to like the country. So what had happened, allegedly, and this is like secondhand information, this was like a rumor going around the dorms. We don't really know if she actually did it, but what allegedly happened was she stole the equivalent of almost $100 from Miss Siren. And mind you, $100 in a lot of countries can go a very long way. Again, we don't know if it really happened, but this student, being quiet as she was and like not really hanging out in the common room, we didn't really know a lot about her either. So now with the rumor going around of this girl who allegedly took money from Miss Siren, we had the impression of this girl being a thief. And look, I was young and impressionable, so I kind of took that rumor as fact, as did a lot of other people in the dorm. And now looking back, I do kind of feel bad for the student because, you know, when these types of rumors start spreading around the dorm and it's like a really small like building, word does spread around pretty quickly, and with things like these, it's easy for people to treat the quote-unquote villain differently, if you get what I mean. So obviously this person gets ostracized even more than she was already, you know, with her being a bit of a loner prior to this incident. And then after a week or so, she decided to move out, and actually I never really saw her at the college anymore, so I think she may have actually transferred. And you know, I do truly feel bad for this incident because a lot of the dormers did buy into the rumor. So after this incident, there were a couple of rules introduced by Miss Siren. Now, prior to Miss Siren and Miss Resting Bitchface coming into the dorms, it was established by Miss Liz and my batch of dormers that you have to be at the dorms by 11:30 p.m. Honestly, it took a lot of convincing Miss Liz that 11:30 was more appropriate for college students. But anyway, that 11:30 shifted to be at the dorms by 9 o'clock p.m. And that rule also extended to the commons room. Like prior to all this, again, it was like 24/7, but ever since the incident, they started closing it at 9 o'clock p.m. as well. And when these rules were announced, it was all being enforced by Miss Siren, and Miss Resting Bitchface was kind of being silent, arms crossed, and her face, again, well, looking displeased. Honestly though, like a lot of these rules, they weren't really being enforced when Miss Liz was around. Well, she did enforce it to some degree, but she wasn't strict. She wasn't anal about it. So it was all pretty chill when Miss Liz was around, but ever since the introduction of the new rules set by Miss Siren, the aura just kind of changed in the dorm. But it wasn't to the degree where people decided that it was better to move out of the dorms and move to like this apartment complex or condo complex close to the school. The reason for that was the next incident that happened involving Miss Siren as well. So it's a couple of weeks before the semester ends. I'm chilling in my room, I'm playing League, it's nighttime, and I hear a knock on my door. So I open the door and I see Miss Siren, and she was like, "Hey, can you come out? There's been an incident, it's an emergency meeting, we need to talk about it." And honestly, I really did not want to attend the meeting. I probably should have never opened the door, but there I was, and you know, I had to go at this point, you know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Say no when I've opened the door to the supervisor? So I was like, okay, sure, whatever. So I step outside, grab my phone, I go to the commons room with Miss Siren, and I see a group of people in front of the commons room. And it's all a group of dormers. There were like about 7 of them already there. And I also see Miss Resting Bitchface. And the thing is, the dormers were all lined up in a way that prison inmates would be lined up, like when they're taking their photograph. Everyone's shuffling their feet, everyone looks nervous, and Miss Resting Bitchface, again, this time, like she's been quiet this entire time she's been there. She's been the more reserved type, quiet. For the most part in the meetings, Miss Siren has been the one taking the lead, the only one yapping, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I get there and Miss Siren says, "Okay, I need you to stand and line up with them. Line up with the rest of the dormers." I'm like, okay, well, this is pretty serious. I don't know what the fuck is going on. And I say that in my head. So I line up right next to this guy that I was pretty close to. I say what's good, what's going on, and I didn't want to say anything at the time, so I like kept my mouth shut. We're waiting for the meeting to start, and in total there are supposed to be like 15 dormers in the meeting, but the rest weren't there. So the Miss Siren decides to go and gather the rest, text them, call them, and at this point she's walked away with Miss RBF to kind of gather the rest of the dormers. And I turn around, I ask my friend, and I was like, dude, the fuck is happening? Why are we being lined up like we're about to get shot? I shit you not, the next words that came out of his mouth pissed me off so fucking bad. He turns around and tells me, someone stole Pikachu's strawberries from the freezer, and now Miss Siren wants to get to the bottom of it, find out who did it, and give them the proper punishment. And I'm staring at him like, no fucking way, bro. That's crazy. All this making us stand up in a line just to find out who stole strawberries? A pack of fucking strawberries? Now remember, Pikachu is dating an athlete. Pikachu is in the line with us. I see Pikachu, but the athlete she's dating is not there because he is in basketball practice. And remember, like I said, it was common knowledge that the athletes were the ones who were usually taking food from the fridge, and if it was their partner's food, it was okay with all the other dormers. And if their partner gets mad, well, that's on them and they need to sort it out themselves. So I think it is safe for me to speak for everyone at that line at the time that it was safe to assume that perhaps, maybe, it was one of the athletes who yoinked the strawberries. And mind you, these two dorm mothers, they were kind of starting to get close to everyone at the dorms at the time, and they kind of knew everyone's habits. So anyway, Miss RBF comes back and she walks straight to Pikachu. Not like a menacing walk or anything, she's just like calmly walking towards Pikachu. So at the other end of the line where I was, like far away from Pikachu, was her and her friend who was also staying at the dorms. And they both looked stressed as fuck, they were like shifty eyed. And Miss RBF reaches them, they're like talking to each other, and I guess they were kind of pleading to Miss RBF, but I couldn't really hear anything, and all Miss RBF was doing was just nodding along. And the rest of us were kind of, we were all quiet, we're all thinking the same thing. It was fucking bullshit, bro. We could be in our rooms, we could be chilling, we could be drinking. Why are we being punished for something that we didn't do? So anyway, Miss Siren comes back, and she looks really pissed off. She says none of the other dormers are responding, so we're gonna start the meeting. Miss RBF walks up to her, like stands next to her, but she does not look happy at all, like Miss RBF. And she's standing behind Miss Siren, arms crossed, and Miss Siren goes, okay, before this meeting starts, I want everyone to hand over their phones because I don't want you to be distracted while I am speaking and while we're discussing this issue. There's only about half of you here, half of the dormers present, but this is a very important issue. Someone stole Pikachu's strawberries. She spent money on it, and I want you guys to stand here, lined up, until one of you admits to stealing the food. No one is going back to their rooms, no one is leaving this area until one of you admits to it. Bro, when I tell you the atmosphere changed, holy shit. It was like she casted domain expansion. That's what I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying? And at the other end of the line, I hear Pikachu speak up. Like, this was like 2 minutes into the whole meeting, and she was like, Miss Siren, really, it's okay. There's no need to like make a huge deal out of it. I know who did it. It's probably my boyfriend. I texted him already, but he hasn't responded yet. He might have responded, but you took our phones already, so maybe if you give me my phone back, I'll be able to see if he's responded and admitted to stealing my strawberries. And mind you, like I said earlier, everyone in the dorms knew it was usually the athletes who took the food. And the unspoken rule was as long as they were only taking their partner's food, it's all good. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, there it is. Case closed, time for us to go. What a fool I was. Miss Siren, like an owl, snaps her head towards Pikachu and asks, okay, well, I do not accept this reasoning until your boyfriend gets over here and admits to stealing your strawberries. And Miss RBF, who's been silent this entire time, who's been holding on to this small basket filled with our phones, she quietly asks Miss Siren, can we at least look through Pikachu's phone and see if her boyfriend's responded? And Miss Siren was like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. But if there is no response, no one's moving. So Miss RBF hands over Pikachu her phone, no response. Because at this time, he was practicing ball with the rest of the other athletes. And Miss RBF told Pikachu, okay, well, maybe you should try calling him. Maybe his phone is not on silent. See if that works. Pikachu does it, doesn't work. Tries again over the course of 10 minutes. Tries again, no response. And this entire time, Miss Siren was looking at the other dormers, talking to them, and she was like, this can all be over if one of you admits to stealing the food. I know some of you dormers have grown close, but I don't want to punish anyone who isn't involved in this situation. So if you did it, step forward, accept responsibility, and just admit it. Otherwise, you're just making this harder for everyone else. And the crazy thing was, she pointed at me and like 3 other people, and she was like, I know you didn't do it, and I know you didn't do it, but you're gonna stay here until we find out who did it. No exceptions. And at this point, I've already had enough. I didn't want to start anything. I didn't start anything, but I've already had enough. She pointed at me and a couple of other people, so we deserve to like be let go, because she said she knew that we weren't the ones who did it. At some point, someone offered to buy Pikachu a new pack of strawberries, which Miss Siren said no to. Pikachu herself said that there was no need to make a huge deal about this whole thing, and that she was okay with her boyfriend taking her food. And she has also stated that her boyfriend was the one who probably took the strawberries. The practice session for the athletes doesn't end until like a few hours after. We were lined up like we were about to get shot. Like, it was a pretty embarrassing situation to be in. We're lined up like fucking prison inmates. No one wanted to take the fall. We were at an impasse. It was Miss Siren versus the dormers. And 20 minutes pass of Pikachu trying to reach her boyfriend, us being quiet, Miss Siren swinging her big dick around, lording over everyone, until finally 20 minutes of this entire ordeal pass, and Miss RBF walks up to Miss Siren and says, I think this is enough. In the gentlest way possible, okay? Hers was the most gentle voice that we've heard this entire time. So Miss Siren was protesting against against stopping this whole punishment thing, but I'll change Miss RBF's face at this point to Miss Angel. Miss Angel at this point says, they've been standing here long enough. No one wants to admit to anything. They're probably innocent, and Pikachu already knows who most likely stole the strawberries. So when her boyfriend and the rest of the athletes come, we'll talk to them and then we'll figure out the rest from over there. And there was a couple of seconds of tense silence between the two of them, and they're just staring at each other. It was like watching a Game of Thrones power struggle scene. But eventually Miss Siren relents and says, okay, yeah, sure, let's do that. She turns around, looks at the dormers and says, I hope this never happens again, and storms off. And as she's storming away, the rest of the dormers were shuffling towards Miss Angel. We're like, oh, thank you, Miss Angel, that was so rough, I don't know why we had to go through all that. And Miss Angel was like, oh, it's okay, you guys go back to your rooms, I'll talk to Miss Siren about what happened, then we'll discuss how we move on. And for everyone in the dorms, this was literally the turning point of how people perceived these two dorm mothers. Turns out, our first impressions were very wrong. Miss Angel was the more chill supervisor, whereas Miss Siren was the more stricter one. This entire time, Miss Angel was the hidden goat. Not even a week after this whole incident, people were hesitant when it came to like hanging out in the common area. So yeah, that aspect was ruined. Every single time people wanted to hang out in the common area and we see Miss Siren, we were like, maybe we should hang out somewhere else. Let's hang out like maybe in your room, or let's hang out outside. And mind you, the dorm mother's room was on the same floor as the common area. It was actually right next door. And the dormers, whenever we could like hang out in the common area without Miss Siren, we were discussing, we're like, man, maybe we should move out, because like this is ridiculous having us line up. If that's gonna be the punishment every time someone fucks up, I don't want to be around for that. Everyone was pretty much on the same end. We're like, yeah, it's probably best to move out. So the next semester rolls around, and some of the dormers actually followed through with moving out, and they moved to the apartment complex that was close by to the school. a little bit further away from than the dorm was, but it's still like about a 10-minute walk away. Some of the dormers did stay, and I was actually one of them. And I'm walking down the dorm's halls after like coming back from vacation, and I see Miss Angel. I'm like, hey, how are you? And she was like, oh, I'm good. And I ask her, is Miss Siren still around? Just want to say my greetings to her. And she was like, oh, I don't know if she's actually coming back. She might have found a different job. I haven't heard from her for a while, so I don't know if she's coming back. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Anyway, I'll see you around. I'll head back to my room and unpack my things. But in my head, I was like, thank fucking God she's gone. So a couple of weeks pass after like moving back into the dorms, and I hear from one of the dormers something very, very interesting. And this is regarding Miss Siren. Apparently, we weren't supposed to have two dorm mothers, and in fact, Miss Angel was supposed to be the only one who was, supervising the dorms. Miss Siren wasn't supposed to be there, and the only reason she was there in the first place was because she was the college psychiatrist's drug rehab patient, and he wanted to put Miss Siren in the dorms to see if she can integrate back into society. Now, the psychiatrist initially pitched this idea to one of the co-founders of the school, and the co-founder didn't want this to happen at all. But I guess the psychiatrist managed to convince him, and, well, it happened. Now, this isn't me trying to demonize people who are getting out of rehab, because I do understand that they need help, and if they can reintegrate back into society, that is fantastic. Obviously, I don't know how these things work. I don't know the first thing about like drug addiction recovery, but personally speaking, I don't exactly know if that was the best course of action on the psychiatrist's end. Like, I loved him as a teacher. I thought he was a wonderful person. He's passed now, like, rest in peace. But yeah, I'm not sure if that was really the best course of action. But yeah, anyway, that is one of my dormitory horror stories that I experienced. If you guys made it this far, comment strawberries down below, and if you want to share any of your horror stories, comment them down below and maybe I'll read them. Maybe you'll be in the next video, who knows. Anyway, see ya. I'm actually enjoying these unscripted videos. Like, yeah, I'm doing a couple of retakes, but, still enjoyable.